Hello and welcome to our final installment of the Canada series. Before we begin, just a reminder that in 1867 there were only 4 original provinces: Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. All 4 of these can be found in Eastern Canada and will be part of our discussion today. In addition, we will look at Newfoundland and Labrador and Prince Edward Island. So let's begin. First, let's look at Ontario. Ontario is the second largest Canadian province in terms of area. Toronto is the capital city of Ontario. The name Toronto is derived from an Iroquois term meaning where there are trees in water. One of the most famous landmarks in Toronto is the CN Tower. Ontario is also home to the capital city of Canada, Ottawa. The name Ottawa is derived from the Algonquin word meaning to trade. Ontario also has parts of the Great Lakes. These huge lakes consist of Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario, and Lake Superior. Toronto also holds the distinction as hosting the first ever NBA basketball game. Fast forward many years later, and the 2019 NBA champions were the Toronto Raptors, the first champions to reside outside the USA. Ontario also hosts some of the most interesting festivals in Canada. The Stratford Festival is a theatre festival which runs from April to October in the city of Stratford, Ontario. It is recognized worldwide for its productions of Shakespeare plays. Moving to Kitchener-Waterloo, the Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest is an annual 9-day festival. Now, we cannot talk Ontario without also talking about Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is a group of 3 waterfalls, and it spans the border between the province of Ontario and New York State. That's it for Ontario. It is time to move to Quebec. Quebec is the largest Canadian province in terms of area. Quebec City is the capital of Quebec. The main language spoken in Quebec is French. Quebec comes from the Algonquin language, narrow passage or strait. Quebec City was founded in 1608. Montreal holds the distinction of many sports wonders. The first one is the fact that Jackie Robinson, who broke Major League Baseball's color barrier in 1947, actually began playing in Montreal for the Montreal Royals. Quebec also has very beautiful and unique hotels. The Chateau Frontenac Hotel holds the Guinness World Record for the most photographed hotel in the world. Also, the Hotel de Glace near Quebec City is Canada's first and only true ice hotel. Quebec also hosts Carnival, a very well-known winter festival. And up to 1 million people attend the Carnival each year. It is one of the largest winter festivals in the world. Let's talk food. Quebec is well known for poutine and maple syrup. In fact, Quebec is responsible for about 90% of all maple syrup produced in Canada. Finally, we cannot talk about Quebec without talking about the Montreal Canadiens. Founded in 1909, the Canadiens are the longest continuously operating professional ice hockey team in the world. The Canadiens have won the most Stanley Cups of any franchise. They have won 24 championships. Nova Scotia is the first maritime province we will talk about. As we mentioned earlier, it is one of the original 4 Canadian provinces. The capital city is Halifax, and Halifax is famous for the Citadel, which is the highest part of downtown Halifax. It is a fortified location that looks out over the harbor. It was built by the English in the 1700s, and it has been remodeled a few times. Out of interest, it still fires the noon hour cannon every day. In addition, the Micmac are native to this rugged, sea-swept peninsula. Their art, music, language, and spirituality are just a drumbeat away when you visit Nova Scotia. Acadians are also descended from the first European settlers in Nova Scotia. Talk about history, we need to talk about the Blue Nose, or even Blue Nosers. Did you know that Nova Scotians have been proudly referred to as Blue Nosers since the 1700s? When you think Blue Nose, you might think about one of the most famous ships in Canadian history. The Blue Nose was built in Nova Scotia and is found on the back of the Canadian dime. Talking about boats, the Titanic struck an iceberg on April 14, 1912, and it was only 700 nautical miles east of Halifax. While maybe most of the survivors ended up in New York, the passengers who perished were brought to Halifax. There's a permanent Titanic museum, and there are 3 Halifax cemeteries dedicated to Titanic victims. New Brunswick is next. New Brunswick is the largest of the 3 maritime provinces, and its capital city is Fredericton. Originally called St. Anne's Point until 1785, when Governor Thomas Carleton changed it to Frederickstown after Prince Frederick, Duke of York. New Brunswick is famous for the Bay of Fundy, which is well known for having the highest and widest tides in the world. It is also known as a pristine sanctuary for all kinds of rare, unusual wild creatures, including a variety of whale species. The beaches of New Brunswick are also famous in Canada. They feature the warmest salt water north of Virginia. Talking about water and land, you cannot talk about New Brunswick without talking about lighthouses. There are more than 60 lighthouses in the province. New Brunswick also has a rich history in the fact that New Brunswick hosts the University of New Brunswick, which is the oldest university in North America, while the first museum in Canada is the New Brunswick Museum in St. John. New Brunswick also has more than 55 remaining covered bridges. The longest covered bridge in the world is located in Heartland, New Brunswick, and it is 390 meters long. That's 1,282 feet. Finishing up the maritime provinces, we have Prince Edward Island. It is the smallest of Canada's 10 provinces. This province did not join Confederation until July 1st, 1873. The island is named after Prince Edward, who was the 4th son of King George III and the father of Queen Victoria. The capital city is Charlottetown and was named after or to honor Queen Charlotte, the wife of George III of England. When you talk about Prince Edward Island, many people will turn to a famous novel, TV series, and even movie, Anne of Green Gables. The author, Lucy Maud Montgomery, drew inspiration from the beautiful land during the late Victorian era for the setting of this famous novel. The Confederation Bridge, which connects Borden, Carleton to Cape Germain, New Brunswick, is the world's longest bridge over ice-covered waters. And PEI is almost famous for its potatoes. Potatoes have been produced on Prince Edward Island since as early as 1771. Today, The island grows a third of Canada's potatoes. We will finish up with Newfoundland and Labrador. Newfoundland and Labrador have a very unique history compared to other Canadian provinces. Newfoundland, Britain's first North American colony, claimed by John Cabot in 1497. St. John's is the capital and largest city of Newfoundland and Labrador, and is not to be mistaken with St. John's, which is spelled S-A-I-N-T, in New Brunswick. Existing on maps as early as 1519, St. John's is one of the oldest cities in North America. In 1948, it held a referendum to decide its future. Newfoundland joined the Canadian Confederation in 1949. But Newfoundland's history goes back even farther when you talk about a European influence. There's a spot in Newfoundland where you can find a remainder of ancient Vikings. It's called Lanze-au-Meadow, and it's the home of what may be the first European settlement in North America. Well, that concludes our three-part series on Canada. Thank you for joining us, and please check the MCY Youth channel weekly for new fun and interesting videos. Bye for now.